coming off of one of the legendary performances in playoff history from Damian Lillard. The Portland Trail Blazers blew a 14-point lead in Game 6 and saw their season come to an end in the first round. A day later, the changes began with a big one. The Trail Blazers and Terry Stotts agreed to part ways, and the search is on for a new head coach. It's the end of an era in Portland. Stotts spent the past 9 years as head coach of the Trail Blazers. His 402 wins is the second most in franchise history, guiding the team to 8 straight playoff appearances. That's the longest current active streak in the NBA. Stotts wrote a goodbye letter thanking Rip City for the life-changing experience. So, Art, how will you remember Coach Stotts' legacy here in Portland?
Well, for me, I think it's about the consistency. I mean, we would have wanted them to get further in the playoffs than they did. Just the one championship series, Western Conference Championship Series. But being consistent like that is really amazing in this day and age in the NBA.
Such a good guy, such a nice guy as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. I always had fun when I got a chance to talk to him. He would tease me about asking him news questions in his news conferences. He always got a kick out of that.
He's like, hey, wait, you're supposed to only talk sports.
What are we doing?
All right, Art, well, let's flip the script here. Despite 8 consecutive playoff appearances under Stotts, Portland was knocked out in the first round for the last 5 seasons. By the numbers, the defense ranked as one of the worst in the league this past season. Their defensive rating, second to last. I talked to NBC Sports Northwest Trailblazers insider Dwight Jaynes about that.
That was the real problem, is that the team never had a great defensive system, and I don't know that they were held accountable for their defensive mistakes. So I think that played a big role in it. The next coach, in my opinion, is going to be somebody who coaches a little harder, and I think that's going to be more demands on players and maybe once in a while some unhappy players. But when you look around the league at the teams having success, there's a lot of those coaches around now who are coaching pretty hard.
So almost immediately after ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski broke the news that Stotts was out, he tweeted this list of candidates expected to be considered. We'll talk more about that in a minute, because here's where things get interesting. Not long after that list came out, Chris Haynes with Yahoo Sports had Damian Lillard on the record saying he wanted Lakers assistant Jason Kidd to be the Blazers' next coach. This is noteworthy because Lillard hasn't done that before in letting the organization know publicly what he wants to happen. So let's check in with NBA reporter and writer at Bleacher Report, Sean Highkin.
I've never seen a player, whether, LeBron, Durant, Harden, any of these guys who have this reputation of running an organization or whatever. I've never seen any of them actually just straight up go on the record with a reporter and say, this is the coach that I want them to hire. So Dame kind of sent a pretty strong message there. Dame is making it pretty clear that he is going to be a lot more involved in these sorts of moves than maybe he has been in the past.
And this could have gotten messy, especially if the front office didn't go with the guy that Lillard wanted. There was also a significant amount of fan outcry about Jason Kidd's past with domestic violence. Fast forward to Sunday morning, Jason Kidd reading the room well. ESPN reporting Kidd withdrew his name from consideration for the job, saying, quote, Portland is a first-class organization and will have a great candidates for its head coaching job, but I've decided not to be one of them. So back to that list of reported candidates. Former Trailblazer and Michigan head coach Juwan Howard, as well as Mike D'Antoni, Jeff Van Gundy, 2 very experienced NBA head coaches. There's also Clippers assistant Chauncey Billups. Shams Charania and Jason Quick of The Athletic reported the Trailblazers are increasingly expected to hire Clippers assistant Chauncey Billups or Jason Kidd. The report also said Lillard liked both options. Based on that, Billups appears to be the front runner on that list. NBA reporter Sean Highkin says there's history between Billups and Blazers general manager Neil Olshey.
I had heard even before Dame came out that Chauncey Billups was going to be in the mix pretty strongly for this job because he has a relationship with Neil Olshey going back to when Neil was the GM of the Clippers, and the Clippers brought in Chauncey Billups at the same time as they traded for Chris Paul in 2011. And so they kind of have a relationship, and over the years, many, many times, Dame has been compared to Chauncey Billups by Neil as far as his effect on the locker room and his leadership and the way that guys look up to him.
So this team wasn't good enough to win a championship. Damian Lillard said it himself. Stotts being out could be just the first domino to drop. There's still the roster. First, Jusuf Nurkic. He made it clear he was unhappy with his role, questioned his future with the team, even though he's still under contract. But 8 players could be gone. Carmelo Anthony, Enes Kanter, they're free agents. Zach Collins is a restricted free agent. Well, Derek Jones Jr. and Norman Powell have the option to look around. Here's author of Bubble Ball and NBA writer with the Washington Post, Ben Golliver.
Everything's in play, right? I mean, other than Damian Lillard, the entire roster to me is tradable. That includes CJ McCollum. You heard the sense of uncertainty from Jusuf Nurkic in his post-game press conference. And again, we haven't heard a ton of sentiments like that in past years. So it feels a little bit like potentially the end of the era. I would actually zoom back. I mean, you probably remember this when it was LaMarcus was gone and Wesley Matthews was gone and Nicholas Batum was gone. It was like a complete overhaul summer and the team came back kind of fresh with a bunch of new faces. I kind of expect that for Portland next year. And as we know, one of those new faces is going to be the coach.
So, Art, what do you think about Ben's comments there?
Well, I think he's probably right that it is going to be an overhaul. You know, they've got some needs. They need a power forward.
Yeah, that's so true.
Oh,
We've been saying that for a while, right?
We have been, yeah. And who knows what else is going to happen. Chauncey Billups and Melo have history together in Denver, though.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes.
Maybe that gets him back to Portland if he still wants to be here.
Absolutely.
The rest of the roster seems pretty interesting. I think Norman Powell is at the top of the list when it comes to who we need to bring back, because he's going to go out there and he's going to be romanced by a lot of other teams, and it's going to cost the Blazers to keep him.
It is, but he'd be a good guy to continue to have on that roster. You know, he adds some more toughness, some good defense, and he can shoot the ball.